I think for my partner and I, when we wanted to, go down the fostering journey, it really started with our friends who are already foster carers, and we could see the great work that they were doing and the rewarding experiences they were having in their life. So when we relocated for work to a different state, we thought we'd look into it. We built our own house and we were kind of settled and that sort of thing. So we really wanted to have a chance to make a difference for young people, and we thought fostering was the best way forward. So we started caring when the Western Bulldogs won the grand final, which I think was 2017. I think so. I think it's around about 5 years that we've been caring. That's the marker that we use. We're accredited now for all types of foster care, so long term, short term, all ages, all sexes, and that sort of thing. We are initially accredited for just short term care for young males in the foster care system, but since then we've expanded our scope and we can care for any type of child in foster care. So the number of placements we provided, I think we stopped counting after about 20 or so. It's quite interesting. So I think it's important to understand that the types of placements that we've had, they're never the same. They're always different. So whilst we might have a short term or a weekend respite, we might have them for a couple of weekends, and then it might turn out that they need a longer term placement. So we've had a situation where that happened. During those long-term placements, we've had emergency placements come in on top of that for the weekends or during the weeknights and that sort of thing. We've had sibling groups. We've had all sorts of different children in different situations come into our care. So yeah, it'd be up around, to get back to the question, it'd be up around the 30 or 40 mark, I think now. So I think the greatest thing about fostering is seeing a young person come into your home and just doing the basics for them and giving them that consistency in their life and seeing them thrive as a result of that really basic, consistent element being introduced into their lives. And it's so humbling when you can provide that without a whole lot of effort, but you can see the reward in the young person coming to the surface. So that you can see them being proud in themselves. You can see their self confidence changing and all that sort of thing. Young people will come to you with all sorts of different backgrounds and experiences in life, and to see them come into your life and you have a big impact on their life in such a short amount of time is probably the most rewarding thing for me. Probably the end of placement. That's probably the hardest part for me and Peter. Seeing these young people come into you in one way, shape, or form, and then as they spend time with you, and then you reflect on when they leave and you look at how far they've grown and how far they've come along. As it's kind of bittersweet. It's not the hardest thing, but it's bittersweet. I think is a better description, because you know that they've got to go off and live their life and do their thing, but know that you won't have much to do with that anymore. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, saying goodbye and giving them up, I think, is the hardest part. So yeah, the support we get from OzChild is actually pretty outstanding in my personal opinion. Anyway, I think your support with OzChild extends far beyond your initial the young person's caseworker. So we've got our own support worker with OzChild that looks after us as carers. So they regularly check in with us and have phone calls, and if we want to, they'll come and have a catch up for a cup of tea or something like that. There's a suite of training and resources available to us as carers that OzChild makes sure that we're up to date, and if there's anything that they think's relevant to us as carers. And a good example of that is we had some Aboriginal children in our care. So there was some training that was specific to that, which we were alerted to, and that really helped us with that particular placement. But then there's things like there's an app on our smartphones that allows us to communicate with OzChild. And it's also, just seeing OzChild out and about in the community as well. It's really there's those events that they run for the young people and that sort of thing. Like at Easter egg, they did an Easter egg hunt for the kids. So it's much more than just the young person and the caseworker for the young person. It's a whole network of people out there who are really dedicated to making sure that our experience in the fostering journey is just as supported as the young person's journey in the fostering as well. What was the first sort of, when we started out on our fostering journey was how on earth do we do this? Because we both worked full time, and how do we, add a young person into our life, and how do we manage that? And it's never been an issue for us. We've both worked full time. During COVID, we've both worked from home full time, and we've still had placements all throughout that. Young people still got to school, young people still got to sports and extracurricular activities, and all that sort of stuff happened. So don't let the fact that you work 9 to 5 full time, or even if you're a shift worker, don't let that distract you from being able to provide just as great an experience as any other stay at home foster carer. Because you're not in it alone. So getting kids to school, there's support services that you can request and you can use. We've certainly done that with getting kids to and from school, especially if they're at a school that's a fair way away from where you live. So yeah, it really, hand on heart, it's never been an issue for us. And you're talking to someone who's been working from home and has had homeschooling for teenagers and all that sort of stuff. It's been no issue whatsoever working and being a foster carer. Yeah, I think the one, the one of the aha moments you have as a foster carer is that moment that you realize that the young person's connection with their maternal um, parents is a connection that can never be unbroken, regardless of what's happened or happening or potentially happening. There's this deep-seated connection, and rightly so, connection to their birth parents. So being involved in the birth parents and having contact with the birth parents is very unique for each young person, because each young person has a different pathway or plan in place. But just being aware and having that knowledge that there is that deep-seated connection, and regardless of what's going on and what's happening, and you've got to have respect for that. You've got to understand that, and you've got to be prepared to work with not just the young person, but everyone involved in the actual care of the case plan for the young person. So personally, Peter and I, we've been involved with it's 3 or 4 birth parents now. The most we got involved with was we had a young person with us for about 18 months. He was with us. And he came to a point where his time in care was coming to an end, because his mother was then at a point where she was able to take back care for him. So this young person came into care when he was, I think, 7 years old, and was going out of care when he was 12 years old. So a fair bit goes on in that time for young boys. So, she was, had to get to know him again, and get to realize, how he worked and that sort of thing. So we were able to, in a very structured way, get to meet her and get to talk to her and get to know her, and that allowed her a chance to ask us questions and to be involved with us. So it's always, connection with or contact with birth parents is always at our discretion as well. We're in full control. We were never forced or obliged to do anything. We always put our hand up and said, hey, we're happy to do it. The other instances where we've been involved in birth parents, there's been some court scenarios where we've had to take young children for assessments and that sort of thing, and by default birth parents are there. So it's just a matter of maintaining that respect and that for their situation of what they're going through. And then we've got a young person in care with us right now whose birth mother has, quite often you'll hear this phrase, come out of the woodwork, and has started to show and has shown an interest in wanting to get to know her son again. So that's something that we work with a caseworker, we work with the department, and we work with their support networks and our support networks to make sure that it's an experience that's positive for everyone involved. But overall, our contact and our experience with birth parents has been quite positive, and adds to that rewarding factor of the influence that you're having on this young person's life. think in terms of the actual, getting involved with contact and taking young people to contact and that sort of thing, it's a voluntary thing. So if you're comfortable in getting involved in that contact, you're welcome to get involved. We certainly did. With that young person who was with us for 18 months, we established a kind of like a reverse respite arrangement where, although the person was in our care, we'd actually send him to mum for respite. So, we'd drop him off and pick him up and say hi to mum and bye to mum and all that sort of stuff. So, I've also been in situations where, we've taken them to young person to a McDonald's, and we've met up with the caseworkers, and the mother is there, and they spend some time together, have a meal together, and then we pick them up and we take them home as well. So it but again, it really is up to you as a carer. You get to choose pretty much your involvement in that contact and how that's going to work. If it's something that you're not comfortable doing, then there's caseworkers and department workers that can facilitate it. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to that having respect for that connection to their birth parents and just understanding that despite everything you're doing, their birth parents are still number one in their life. Couple of sibling groups that I can think of. One that stands out, we had two brothers come and stay with us for actually a short term. They were with us for 6 or 7 months, I think, in the end. And it was our first sibling experience. So we were a little bit nervous about taking two foster kids in at once, or two young people in at once. But in all honesty, it was actually really nice to have two brothers because it was kind of like their little family unit and our little family unit combined. We were one big happy family kind of thing. It makes a huge difference when young people are in a situation where they have to be taken away from their maternal parents for whatever reason. It makes their life so much easier and so much more consistent if they're kept with their family group as much as they can. So we were really lucky to have the two boys, and it made our life a little bit easier, to be honest, because we weren't obliged to entertain a 10-year-old 24/7. They had their brother who could entertain them, and they played together and did their thing together. So yeah, it was quite a good experience having a sibling group, and it actually, yeah, it made for no better or no worse of an experience. It was just a different experience, but at the same time, it was great that we could care for a group that would otherwise be split up, and apart from being removed from their parents and then being split up from their siblings, that just adds to that trauma. So to be able to keep them together, I think, was a really important thing. I think first and foremost, it's important to understand that no one is born a parent. No one's born with the knowledge in their mind already of having the answers to every scenario and the answer for every question and knowing what to do, no matter who you are. You'll at some point doubt yourself. You'll at some point go, hang on, how do I deal with this scenario? And it's no different being a foster parent. In fact, it's probably a bit more amplified as a foster parent because you'll experience something with one child or one young person, and then another young person will come into care and you go, oh no, hang on, that was this was what happened before. So we've had situations where we certainly weren't equipped to handle a situation or equipped to know how to diffuse a situation. And if it's during business hours, we know that we can call our caseworker, our support worker can be called. But then after hours, there's a number that's available 24/7, and we've had to call them a few times to be really honest, and they've given us some really helpful advice. They've been able to talk to the young person independent of the situation that's going on in the home, and we're able to, on every occasion, diffuse the situation and put everyone at ease and put everyone back to square one. So yeah, I think, like I said, it's completely okay to be doubting yourself. It's completely okay to be questioning yourself, and if anything, that's a good thing, right? Because it shows that you care, and it shows that you're actually genuinely interested in providing the best level of care you could. So coupled with that, there's a whole support network available to you, probably more than what newborn parents get. And as foster carers, we get access to, like I said, the after hours contact number, who are qualified counsellors and that sort of thing, as well as your 9 to 5 access as well. So. The kids who end up in foster care are, wow, there's no real definition in our experience. We certainly had a preconceived notion of what foster kids would be like, and that was very quickly blown out of the water. So don't go into foster caring with any sort of preconceived notion of what kids are like. They come from a plethora of backgrounds and experiences and traumas and life experiences, and these young people that have been exposed to things and have seen things that I will probably never ever see in my lifetime, let alone what a 10 or a 12-year-old has had experience has been experienced. So, um, from our experience, we've had 4-year-olds, we've had 14-year-olds, we've had 17-year-olds, we've had the whole range of come in, and the one thing that's always worked really well is just reassuring them that some of the things that they're going through and some of the emotions they're feeling are completely normal. That, yeah, I felt like that when I was a teenager, or yeah, I felt like that, or I would feel really, frustrated in that situation, and I'd feel the same way. And we've had a couple of instances where we've taken that approach, and they're like, really? Why would you feel the same way? And they're genuinely interested to hear why you'd feel the same way, or why you'd react in a way you'd react. And for them, hearing that, another human being feels the same way as them, or reacts the same way as them, is the reassurance that they need in their life. Because for so long they may have been told that they're abnormal, or they're different, or they get picked on because someone's found out that they're a foster kid or something like that. But the second you can relate to them and be empathetic with them, and let them know that it's completely okay to be emotional, like it's completely okay to have feelings, and it's completely okay to be upset and frustrated, just as it's really important to be happy and excited, and feel safe and cared for as well. So you're always going to have a unique situation with each child that's in your care, but there'll always be a common denominator that you'll be able to pull back to, and to work with. But for us, dealing with those different traumas and those different experiences that these young people have, for us, it comes back to just, and it takes a lot of effort sometimes just to sit back and listen to them in the heat of the moment. And, you let them have their vent, or you let them be withdrawn, you let them sit in their room, and you let them be quiet, because eventually they'll calm down. Eventually they'll come back, and once they're chilled out, they'll come out to you and they'll tell you exactly what's wrong. Because, for so long, their heightened behavior, or their withdrawn behavior elicits a particular response, and they're fearful of that response that they would typically get from that particular behavior. But if you can give a completely opposite response, that gets their attention, and they're like, oh, really? What's going on there? So yeah, no, but again, back to the support networks and all that sort of stuff. It's all, we know that we can be foster carers, and we can know that we can have any child come in with any experience or trauma, and we know that we can be supported with whatever we're up against. Young people rock up to your house in all shapes and sizes and variations. We've had kids who turn up who are really happy to be here, and they're really excited to see a new house and a new home and get to know us and that sort of thing. But on the other end of the spectrum, we've had kids turn up in clothes that are being worn inside out, because that's the only t-shirt they own, and it hasn't been washed in 2 weeks, and they've literally got a plastic bag of their belongings. So, it really is a wild spectrum, based on what you get. Before a young person turns up at your house, though, you always get access or insight to their time in care previously through what's called a referral document. That referral document will outline any, behaviours or any concerns or that have been identified in the past, and how they've been dealt with, and that sort of thing. And that can equip you to not pounce on them when they walk through the front door, but just be aware of it. And if something does come up, this is how it's been dealt with in the past, and this is what to work with, and that sort of thing. The same goes for the young person. So we've actually got I think it's called a getting to know you card or something like that. It's like a 2-page document that Peter and I filled out that the agency and the department can give to the young person as they're driving to our place. So when they rock up, they know what we look like. We know what our dogs are. They know the cars we drive. They know what the rules of the house are. They know all that sort of stuff. They know what our favorite food is as well. So that's kind of a nice icebreaker for the young person when they rock up. Pets are amazing, no matter what sort of pet you have, whether it's a bird or a hamster or a dog or a cat. Pets are the ultimate icebreaker because you've got this young person who, on one hand, might be really excited to be in your new house, and the pet is a bit of a calming tool for them. It's a bit of a center back to center kind of thing. But then on the other hand, you might have a young person who's really withdrawn and really shy or nervous or timid, and the dog or the pet or the whatever it is the icebreaker for you, and that's their comfort zone as well. So highly recommend pets, whatever shape or form that takes. Highly recommend pets. It works really well. But yeah, you really, at the end of the day, there's also lots of layers to young people who are in care, and sometimes you might end up uncovering one of those layers that hasn't been uncovered before when they do come into your care. So just being prepared for what potentially could happen. But at the same time, it's your house, it's your home. You do you. You keep doing what you do. Don't make any big fuss and don't make any big scenes. Just keep it as it normally is, because that keeps you grounded and keeps you sane, and stops any sort of heightened stuff going on as well. But yeah, no, it's always fun when they rock up, because you open the door and a whole new world exists for you and the young person. So but yeah, it's always fun. I think that there's 3 scenarios that stand out for us in terms of instances where we've seen changes in kids in our care. The first one was that long-term placement I talked about. It was with us for about 18 months, and that was really interesting because he came to us when he was 11 and left when he was just about to turn 13. So and as it turned out, he actually ended up coming back into care. So we actually ended up having him back again for another short term. So we got to see him at different stages of his teenage years, to the point now where you know what was once a typical teenage boy and all the things that come with teenage boys, to this young man who's now 17, about to turn 18 this year, who regularly keeps in touch with us, who regularly will send us a text message out of the blue. Hey Andrew, hey Peter, how you going? Miss you guys. Doing this, doing that. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? So it was really nice that we were able to we're only in his life for very short periods of time, but we've left that impression, and we're that and he says it himself. He goes, "You're the father figures in my life," kind of thing. So it's nice to hear that. Another instance, we had a young boy come to us. He was, I think he would have been 14 or 15 when he came to us, and literally walked in the front door. Sat at the kitchen table, and I was working from home, and he sat at the kitchen table. I'm like, yeah, you watch TV, you do whatever you want to do, got schoolwork to do, you can do that. And I came out like an hour and a half later, and he hadn't moved. I'm like, oh, is everything all right? And he goes, oh no, I was waiting for you to tell me that I could leave the kitchen table. And so I'm like, okay, so we've got a young person here who's obviously been traumatized and has been conditioned into a certain way. So what arrived as a very closed off and withdrawn young person, very afraid of the world kind of thing, he left us this loud and proud, screaming, confident young man who was just so happy to be here, and so happy to be living his life and doing everything that he'd learned. He'd learned so much self-confidence with us. He'd learned so much self-esteem with us. And we've got these photos. We've got a photo of the week that he arrived and a photo of the day he left, and just the glow on his face, and the his shoulders are nice and high and all that sort of stuff. It was just the best thing. And even the old caseworker who was with us then, she always talks about that scenario, and she's like, oh, he was a different kid when he left. It was amazing, and that's really nice for us because we can see. And then the young person that we've got in our care now, he's been with us for 2.5 years. Came to us as a 3-year-old, and now he's about to turn 6 next week. So just watching this young person grow up and learn all these things about life, and we're up to that stage now where everything's a question. Why is this? Why is that? And all that sort of stuff. So And again, you look back at photos and you're like, oh, there's that little fella, and I've actually got a photo of him here on our desk of our very first Christmas Santa photo. And and you look at him now and you're like, oh wow, what's going on there? But it's just so awesome that you can be a part of a young person's life, and you can watch them grow up, and you can watch them create these core memories, and you can be part of all that. And you're really, the best piece of advice I was ever given was, you're not raising a child, you're raising a young person to become an adult. And that resonates with Peter and I so much every day. Every time we talk to them, every interaction is, we're not raising a child, we're not talking to a child, we're raising a young adult, we're raising someone up to be a young adult. And proof will be in the pie, I guess, in 10 or 12 years time. But no, they're the three instances where we've been able to look back and go, wow, that was a pretty cool change or a shift in that young person. Bloody do it. Go and do it. Don't be afraid. Don't hold back. Even if you just do the accreditation and you only end up taking one placement for one weekend for 24 hours, you have made a difference in the world. That is, and if that's all that you take, then that's amazing. Because you know, our life is all about our legacy. What's our legacy going to be? What are we going to leave behind? What's going to be read out, that kind of thing. And if your legacy is that you helped a young person through a 24-hour period, and you taught that young person one really key value for their life that they take with them for the rest of their life, that's a bloody amazing legacy that you're leaving behind. Kudos to you if you go and do it like Peter and I have done it for 5+ years. There's carers out there who are doing it for 30+ years. Just give it a go is my advice. You've got nothing to lose, and you've got everything to gain. It seems like it can be an intrusive or rather personal experience that you go through the whole accreditation process. Trust me, it's not that bad. People don't want to know what you think they want to know about you. It's a good experience to go through. And even if Peter and I just went through the accreditation process, we're better humans for going through that accreditation process. Our minds are much more open to what's going on in the world, and what young people go through, and the traumas that people face, and what's going on. And it just highlights how awesome our own lives are. And then that just highlights, well, if your life's so awesome, then why not share it with someone else who's not having such an awesome life? In terms of things I wish I had have known at the beginning of the journey versus where we're at now, it's really hard to pinpoint. I think I didn't realize how much I was going to learn about myself, I think, is probably the biggest thing. I didn't realize how much more there was to learn about me, and how I am in the world. And it takes a young person to really shape and shift that for me. So as much as I'd like to think that I've enriched the lives of some young people, it's all these young people have actually done so much for me and Peter and our relationship as well. So yeah, my advice, just do it. Go for it. You've got nothing to lose. And like I said, even if you do the accreditation and you only provide care for one weekend for 24 hours, and you turn around and go, no, it's not for me, you've made a difference in one person's life. And that's an awesome legacy to have.